I have yet to meet anyone, including lots of billionaires, who doesn't have patterns from their childhood.
I got literally smuggled in the back of a car through Syria into Europe. And at the time, they were literally running out of young men to fight because so many of them were dying. People were hiding their kids. So that fear and the way I saw my parents reacting to it got me into physical fitness and got me into thinking about, life or death at that age.
The real win here, no matter what kind of traumatic experiences you went through that might set off that programming, is to turn off the programming.
I saw obviously a huge difference. Without it, I don't think I would be as resilient as I am right now.
You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey.
Our guest today is Dr. Eli Aberrached, who's a Dubai-based biohacking and healthy aging strategist and founder of something called Limitless Human and Restore Fitness. Yeah. And so he's a longevity doc, basically. And he's someone who's spoken at a lot of biohacking conferences in the region, and we met out there. And I thought it'd be fun to have a conversation today around what it's like biohacking, well, on the other side of the world from where I am, and to compare notes. Sound like a plan?
Absolutely. I'd love it. You are an inspiration to me. It's such an honor to be here, and you are part of the reason why I am on this journey. So this conversation is especially special for me.
Thank you. Now, you grew up in Lebanon during the Civil War, a really, really beautiful country that's been ravaged by the war, but ended up at Harvard and then came back out to the part of the world in Dubai. What did you see that's different on both sides of the world?
Oh my God, it was such a journey. And if you told my teenage self that this is the trajectory you're going to be on, I think for most people kind of will connect to this. I'll say you're absolutely insane. It was one of the toughest times of my life, even though I didn't spend my whole sort of childhood in Lebanon, but I spent my formative years being like in a teenage part of my life. And actually what started my journey on my own health journey was because of that. So you can imagine the environment, right? So I think we've all seen something on the news of how these sort of situations go about, but when you're in it, it's a little bit different. So we used to live in Beirut, the center of the conflict, obviously. And at the time, they were literally running out of young men to fight because so many of them were dying, right? And I'm an only boy. And at the tender age of 14, 15, something like that, people were hiding their kids so they don't knock on the door and basically force you to go in and fight of whatever side that group gets to you first, right? So can you imagine that? So most teenagers don't think about this. Like it's not something that you go through life, all around the globe. Anyway, so that fear and the way I saw my parents reacting to it got me into physical fitness and got me into thinking about life or death at that age, and having people around me drop like flies and people that are neighbors that are same age as me were dying on the front lines and things like that got me really into that path. I didn't know it at the time, obviously, but when I did some sort of regressive work on myself and I was looking at my trauma and other things like that, as you do, I realized that this is where everything got instigated. Yeah. So I got literally smuggled in the back of a car through Syria into Europe and like all of that in order to kind of get away from this. And then the rest is history. I just can't believe that journey. And I've been incredibly fortunate. And I think there is a part of that put me on this path when I look back. Without it, I don't think I would be as resilient as I am right now. And you and I have spoken before about, discomfort and the power of that. And I think part of that journey was meant to make me a little bit more resilient. And we don't know these experiences, what do they mean in our lives until we've had them, And I don't think there are many tougher experiences than being in a literally a civil war for over half a century. That sort of really gets to you, to the people that you love, your family, all of the things that we take for granted in the rest of the world. So I saw obviously a huge difference, and even up to the now. So when I decided to be based in Dubai about 20 years ago, my whole point was that this region was underserved when it comes to all of the stuff that we're talking about: corporate wellness, personal wellness, all of that. And I decided that let's create a voice locally, that we can use the information that is created in the rest of the world, but adjust it to fit us that we live in the region. As you said, incredible temperatures. The other thing is light pollution, noise pollution, never stopping. The culture is built on the fact that you would always have late nights. There's amazing social scene. I'm sure you've seen it. And also a lot of things happen in the evening. So very little happen in the morning, and a lot of it is targeted towards the nighttime. So sleep disruption, very difficult to get your step in. You go to Europe, you go to the US, and you easily, do all the steps that you want. While here it's a little bit more difficult to do, especially certain times of the year. So I've decided to focus on us, the people that live in the region, either born here or have transplanted here, and I focus on that. So, and obviously some of the things that are happening abroad, I didn't feel that they apply to us being where we are now, and I make it sort of my life. One of my life purposes is to adjust this, to translate it into something that we could apply for ourselves. And we're fortunate here to have the craziest things, everything is at our disposal. And there's so much. And obviously the region is driving very aggressively into making it the center of biohacking. And that's why you are in the center of this yourself. That's why they're bringing the best in the world to be here, because they're banking on this, on the thought process that people would want to come to do things that they can't get anywhere else, in a regulated manner. So, it's been such an amazing journey. And I think with more people like yourself being here, we'll be able to move the conversation in the right direction with, I want to say, sort of sane thinking, right? The logic, which seem to be short right now of availability. Like most people are not thinking. Common sense is not where it used to be.
That is for sure. But what's common sense maybe to you or to me may not be common sense, because we have all these different views of how health is supposed to work, because it's been pretty well confused by industry, and sometimes well-meaning, and sometimes just mean people. And you mentioned something about your own health that tied back to childhood experiences.
Yeah.
And as I'm sitting here, I'm at 40 years of Zen, which is the world's preeminent brain upgrade neuroscience place, where people fly in from all over the world. They spend 5 days with my team of neuroscientists and facilitators, and usually me if I'm not flying somewhere, and go through and reprogram nervous system responses to the world. And I've yet to meet anyone, including lots of billionaires who come, who doesn't have patterns from their childhood, because your dad yelled at you, or your mom yelled at you, or you were bullied, or all this stuff. And you're not supposed to see them, especially for men. They're not present in your consciousness, but they're present in your reactivity. When a business partner or a friend gets under your skin, or maybe when you're kids, and you get really mad. Why did I get mad? I didn't really want to get mad. I wonder what that was. Right. And so that's not your choice. That's programming. And if you have enough energy, you can choose to notice the programming and then not yell, even though you wanted to yell. But the problem then is everyone in the room knows that you got pissed off, but then you didn't yell. Right? Yeah. And the real win here, no matter what kind of traumatic experiences you went through that might set off that programming, is to turn off the programming. Because when you do that, you have the sense of peace, and everyone knows that you're the most powerful guy in the room if you're peaceful, because you still have all your energy, and they can't unseat you, right? They can try to say something, and you're just completely calm internally and externally. Like, oh man, I have no power over this person. And that's a really beautiful place to be, because that's the place that means no brain fog, and it means you don't age at the same speed as everyone else, because your stress is now allocated towards doing things you care about. And when people try to do things that bother you, or maybe don't even try, they just do things that bother you, it stops doing that. Every time you get reactive to someone instead of just noticing what they're really trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's a time where you might harm a relationship. And if there's anything I've learned over the last 10 years of coming to the UAE is, relationships get built over years. Right. So this is like the most important thing. And it's true everywhere. But I feel like in the West, we call this trauma. And I almost don't like the name trauma. And because like, it's not trauma. What are you talking about? Like, I have a Lamborghini and, I had a good childhood, so I don't have any trauma. It's like, no, look, your brother kept punching you and you were 5. You have trauma. That trauma is not a capital T. It's like little things that at some point got under your skin and stuck. That's all it is. So there's a lot of freedom to be had. And, if you come from a family anywhere on the planet where there's a lot of conflict, man, there's going to be echoes of that through the generations. There's people who still in Europe, if you were in London and your grandparents went through the bombing of London, there's still anxiety probably in you that your grandmother gave to your mom, who gave to you. Like it happens. So understanding this is the nature of being human is, I think, really important, and it's not evenly distributed around the world. So hopefully it will be.
And it adds a complexity to your journey, to your health span journey, that most people don't really deal with, or actually even recognize. So they focus on the easiest path, or the latest hack, or the path of least resistance, basically. And I found that in the people that I work with, especially with myself, and the impact on my own family and the people that are around me, is focusing on my nervous system, focusing on what drives my decisions, my reactions, my all of that is actually central to me being able to slow down my biological age, react and respond to external stimuli in a most positive way that I can build upon. Obviously, no one is infallible, and we always make mistakes, and these are the mistakes that you learn from and hopefully become better as a result. And I feel that having that sort of awareness changes almost everything that you do in your biology, which essentially dictates your reality. So once you work on your biology, everything is better, in my opinion, and it actually, certainly in my case. When your biology is off, everything around you seems threatening, seems unsurmountable. It seems that it's against you, that the universe is conspiring to put obstacles in your way. When you're stronger, when you're healthier, it seems an easier path. And that's the message that basically underlies everything that I do. So if you work internally, externally becomes a breeze. We seem to always be focused externally about all of the things that we want to change and all of the things that we want to react to. And with the filter of what happens online, that you could do all the nastiest things online, it seems to empower us to also, to go in the wrong direction. We say things online that we would never say in person.
Right.
So it's an extra challenge, obviously. And then with, getting almost all of our information now from far from infallible AI models, is not helping also, because it's always empowering you. That's a good idea. It's all these prompts that are, kind of driving you in the wrong direction, so to speak. It's been a really interesting journey that not only impacted me, my success, my health, my reality overall, but also everyone around me, the people that work with me, the people that interact with me, my kids, and so on.
That's a fantastic answer, and I like the way you're thinking about it.
Howdy! If you're ready to finally see real results this spring, a healthier gut, glowing skin, stronger hair, more energy, it's time to add cowboy colostrum to your daily routine. Cowboy colostrum is the highest quality cow colostrum you can get in the US. And they make it in America from 100% American grass-fed cows. Unlike other colostrum brands, Cowboy Colostrum is true first-day unprocessed whole colostrum, which means it's rich in bioactives like immunoglobulins and growth factors. You might not know this, but I actually have raised cows on my own farm, and that first-day colostrum is different. And don't worry, Cowboy Colostrum only collects the surplus colostrum after baby calves have had their fill. This would go to waste otherwise, but now it can upgrade your health. Colostrum improves gut health, which improves everything else. That includes things like immunity, growing hair, energy, digestion, and a lot more. You get results you can actually see and feel. People taking Cowboy Colostrum are noticing visible changes like glowing skin, less bloating, real hair regrowth, and just consistent energy. Cowboy comes in 4 delicious flavors: chocolate, Madagascar vanilla, matcha, and strawberry. Just blend a scoop into anything that's not hot and feel great for the entire day. Get your gut right by going to cowboycolostrum.com/ASPREY for 25% off your entire order. No bad accent required. That's cowboycolostrum.com/ASPREY.
Kind of two things that are really specific to biohacking in Dubai that I think illuminate things for everyone around here, just around the planet. And you have a couple things that are extreme outliers. One of them is just temperature. It is really, really hot there. So how do you work with patients who are going to be in a part of the world that's really hot, which means they may either be outdoors and really hot or more likely just be indoors and never have access to the outdoors? Like, what's your medical advice for those people?
In general, my focus is on optimizing lifestyle. So I don't do any interventions for sort of chronic illness and things like that. I work with people that are looking to make a change in the future. So we look at what sort of environment they've created for themselves, either consciously or without realizing it, right? Meaning that fear of heat and light. There's an instinctive, this is going to be bad for me, sort of thinking by just looking at the sun, right? Not realizing that if I spend time earlier in the morning or later in the afternoon as the sun is setting, when it is on either side, I can actually get so much benefit from that. And it's not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. So I highly encourage people, no matter what the heat is like, you can find the time early in the morning or late afternoon to spend some time. Yes, you'll sweat. What's wrong with that? We seem to be we have a fear of sweating in this region now. Obviously, you don't want to be surrounded by people when you're doing that. You don't want to go to a meeting right after, but you could always fit it into when you're intentional about something, when you truly care about it, when you prioritize it, you will find a way to do it. So that's one, being exposed to light during heat. The other is that my general advice would focus on what environment can you control. You and I have discussed this also is, we spend so much time indoors. We a lot of our times, especially in this part of the world, be it in winter or in summer. In winter, it's beautiful here. It's like the best temperature, wherever the rest of the world is drowning with snow, extreme temperatures, etc. We have the best time. However, we have about 5 months a year where it's unbearable to be outside. So I say to them, what is it that you could control, right? You can't control your mall. You can't control your car. You can't control the office that you work in to a certain extent. I could control the place where I spend a large majority of my day, which is my bedroom, right? So I go into my bedroom and I say, how can you optimize this to be in the best possible sort of conducive environment for you? I talk about sheets that are natural. I talk about temperatures that are, help you to fall quicker into sleep and stay there longer. I talk about, complete darkness and using darkness to your advantage. I talk about cleaning the air that you are in, making sure your ACs for that room are independent from the rest of the house. Make sure that they are mold free. Make sure that are maintained regularly. So therefore, those 7 or 8 hours where you are in an environment and you could control it, you already have a third of your day, more or less, that is, helping you become healthier, better, stronger, and so on. Be it on a mental side, through REM or in deep sleep for the physical aspect. So it's not difficult when you're intentional. It's when people are afraid of it and they want to hide away from it. And there's also a cultural thing about color, obviously, too. Obviously for obvious reasons that strong exposure to UV, but people in the region prefer lighter colors. There's not just the heat, but they're afraid of getting a tan, basically. So it's a cultural thing. Preferring a clearer, whiter skin in general. So that's another thing that we kind of deal with and try to help people understand that, we're meant to be in light. Yet our environment is created for us, not against us. This is our habitat, right? So the sun, the light, the air, the sand, the ground, the earth, all of these things, they're created for, they're delicately put together in order for us to thrive. And we seem to have created so many things to work against them and take us away from them.
Yep, I love that. And the problem of getting a tan, you can still put on mineral sunscreen. Even if you have darker skin, it'll stop you from getting any tan. And just put it, especially on your face and neck, right? And that's going to solve most of the problem, maybe the back of your hands if you're worried about it.
Right.
But you need to get some sunshine on your torso on occasion whenever you can. It's for making vitamin D, and the darker your skin, the more your body needs it. So you can make sure that you don't get darker on your face if you don't want to. And I think a lot of people do follow that rule.
True.
Going out early in the morning seems to work when I'm there. I'll go to the top of something like the Lana Hotel, beautiful pool. And it's 7 or 8 a.m. But it's hot, but the sunrise is happening. Seeing the sunrise is really good for you. It doesn't take much time, 5-10 minutes, right? Take a dip in the pool and you're okay. So that seems to make a difference. The other question for you is, when I wrote both of my big fasting books, the Bulletproof Diet was the first modern intermittent fasting book, and kind of kicked off a storm to the point that I wrote Fast This Way because people were not reading the first book well, and then they were fasting the wrong way. So I'm like, well, here's how to do it. So I'm a big fan, and a lot of my data come from Ramadan, right? You have this experiment where there's tens of millions of people basically doing intermittent fasting every day. So how do you advise your clients to handle performance and longevity when they're doing a fast every day for 30 days and sometimes a dry fast too?
So there is so much to gain from that, because even though, Ramadan is thought of, especially internationally, that is the fasting, right? But this is not the first thing. It's not the most important thing, in my opinion. Ramadan is about family. It's about, unity. It's about spending time socially with the people that love you and you love back. And that brings in so much. Obviously, the fasting is also a large part of it. And for most people, I say, just like everything else in your life, you approach it intentionally. Meaning that you can't just, stumble upon Ramadan and say, okay, let's see what happens this year. You need to work on, working on your circadian rhythm, because you're going to have late nights. You're going to, so anticipate that. And be it Ramadan, be it anything else in life, I don't look at my journey, and I advise everyone, don't look at their journey in a small time section. I look at it all throughout the year. There are times of the year where I focus a lot more on sort of adding stressors to my body, be it, through exercise, through whatever it is, right? And there are times where I slow down on that because there are stressors coming from other sides, where perhaps the months where my business is the busiest. So I manage the stresses across the year so they kind of average. So be it Ramadan or not Ramadan, I constantly advise people to look at your lifestyle holistically and approach it intentionally. What happens is that we constantly stay on the things that matter less to us as human beings biologically, and how that then impacts our reality and approach to things. which then impacts everything of our relationships and how much we put on fat and all of that. There are strategic things that I advise people to do, like when to work out. If you're used to, for example, working out fasted, this could be something for you. But I would never, sort of tell people just continue with the same intensity that you did before Ramadan. Adjust it so it fits with what your body is challenged enough without creating long-term damage. And so it's very personal. So I think for most people, they get it right because obviously they've been doing it for years. And one of the most important things, especially when Ramadan comes at a time of the year where it is hotter, is hydration. Again, being intentional about that and understanding how much of this is being lost through your body throughout the day and especially with late nights. So being intentional with healthy electrolytes and not the colorful kind. To kind of, if you're focusing on movement, if you're focusing on less sugar in your food, because again, when you're fasting, it seems to be, and it's also cultural a little bit, is that you end your meal with something sweet, or even you break your fast with something sweet because you need that energy, you crave it. So if you fight that urge, you usually sail through it. And every year, thankfully, the people that are around me, they're getting better and better at maintaining their muscle mass, maintaining their general health by controlling these few pillars.
Well, I think we see the same thing on both sides of the world, and the additional challenge during Ramadan of saying, well, maybe that's not the time to push really hard on your workouts, is very, very sage advice.
Yeah. And it's the same thing, is that if your business is particularly busy, or your travel schedule is particularly, you know this more than anyone. I mean, I don't know many people more than you that actually do so many things at the same time. That you need to adjust. It's not fair on the body to expect it to do what it does when you're on vacation. At the same time when you are, so you need to make adjustments.
I love it, Dr. Ellie, this has been so much fun to get to ask you questions about Ramadan and heat and how to make it work in Dubai and in the rest of the world. And as listeners are no doubt not that surprised, we're both talking about exercise and proper nutrition and sleep and circadian biology, because that's where it's at. Like, that's actually what works. And the trick is finding someone who's near you, who can be a service provider who can help. And so I appreciate that you're running a podcast that's really popular in UAE, and Becoming Limitless is the name.
Thank you so much for your generosity and for doing what you do. I appreciate it.
You're so very welcome. And
See you next time on the Human Upgrade Podcast.